Earlier today, Senator Sinema delivered a floor speech in which she said that she will continue to support the filibuster. Here's what that means in practical terms. No voting rights legislation, no Freedom to Vote Act, no John Lewis Voting Rights Act, continued unfettered action by Republicans to steal the vote away from people of color across this country and try to rig elections in their favor. To be clear, and I will say it again, siding with the Republicans to defend the filibuster, in doing that, Sinema is blocking President Biden and Senator Schumer's efforts to protect our rights to vote, despite claiming to support the legislation. Sinema is the exact kind of politician that we do not need more of in Washington. She prioritizes donors over her constituents. This is a senator who opposed the raising of the minimum wage and obstructed President Biden's Build Back Better agenda. This is not the kind of senator that the Democratic Party needs. The voting protections that Democrats are seeking to pass right now are supported by a wide swath of the American public. They would restore the Voting Rights Act, which was gutted by the right-wing Supreme Court, and they would enact protections against right-wing legislation happening in state capitals all over the country, including here in Ohio. Sinema has boldly claimed that she supports and considers Congressman John Lewis a hero, but she's helping Republicans block the legislation named after him in his memory with her defense of the Jim Crow filibuster, the very tool that has been used time and again in this country to block progress for Black people. In fact, the most famous use of the filibuster was to block the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Racist senators blocked passage of the act for 60 days. Decades earlier, it was used to block an anti-lynching legislation. Make no mistake, Sinema is prioritizing this racist procedural tactic in the name of bipartisanship over progress for people of color. She is helping Republicans on their path to destroying our democracy. It's worth mentioning here, too, that only 3 out of 100 senators currently are Black. There are no Black women in the United States Senate. Ohio has never elected a Black senator. It is clear that we need more senators in Washington who know exactly what's at stake for Black people and for voting rights generally. Sinema's defense of the filibuster is also not rooted in reality or facts. She has characterized it by falsehoods and misinformation. She's saying that this is necessary to protect democracy and to avoid ricocheting policy outcomes every few years. But the Senate operated as a majority rule institution for most of its existence. Prior to the 1960s, the filibuster was used rarely and only for bills that were about civil rights. Without the filibuster, our system of government will still have more checks and balances than any other modern democracy. The filibuster is the problem, not the solution. And Sinema and her partner in obstruction, Joe Manchin, have emphasized their belief that lasting, meaningful change can only come through bipartisanship. Well, unfortunately, we are not living in a bipartisan time. The Republican Party will not come to the table when it comes to protecting the right to vote, and we cannot wait for them. As Representative Jim Clyburn pointed out, the 15th Amendment giving Black people the right to vote was enacted on a party line. Are they seriously trying to claim that this is illegitimate? This week in Georgia, President Biden reiterated the need for both the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Act to pass. He discussed the need to protect democracy, especially in light of the events of last January 6th, an attempt to steal election and continue to threaten our democracy. We cannot sit idly by while these extremists seek to disenfranchise a large portion of the American public. During the height of the voting rights movement in the 1960s, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. noted that the filibuster was a, quote, tragedy. It was used by misguided senators, he said, to block people from even voting. This is MLK Jr. Day weekend, and we must work to honor his memory and of so many other civil rights leaders who came before us to pass both of these bills. Democrats can't afford to miss the opportunity to act now, and we cannot afford to elect more senators like Sinema. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate. I understand what's at stake. We in Ohio, who have been living under a partisan gerrymandering regime, understand what's at stake, and we need federal intervention now.